Baiklah, 100 tahun lalu ketika Perang Dunia Pertama, kita tahu di kawasan sebelah sini di Melaya ataupun di Tanah Melayu dan juga di Borneo tidak terlibat dalam Perang Dunia Pertama 100 tahun lalu. Tapi ada satu peristiwa yang dinamakan sebagai pertempuran Pulau Pinang yang sebenarnya merupakan salah satu pertempuran dalam Perang Dunia Pertama, dan pertempuran ini tidak berlaku di Eropah seperti mana dalam Perang Dunia Pertama yang lain, tapi dia berlaku di Pulau Pinang. Dan bercakap mengenai itu bersama saya malam ini ialah Duta Besar Rusia ke Malaysia, Tuan Yang Terutama Ludmila Voroyobra. Terima kasih kerana datang ke studio. Thank you for coming to Astro AWANI. And tonight we're going to talk about this, commemorating the 100 years of Battle of Penang. But before that, you had this commemoration event in Penang. So we sent our crew there, and this is the report.
Pertempuran ini berlaku semasa Perang Dunia Pertama. Ia mendapat perhatian dunia apabila dilaporkan di New York Times pada 1914. Pertempuran bermula apabila kapal SMS Emden milik Jerman menyerang pelabuhan Pulau Pinang dan kapal yang berlabuh di situ. Sebelum mana-mana kapal tentera perikatan menyerang balas, beberapa peluru berpandu dilepaskan ke atas kapal Zemchuk. Zemchuk karam di sini. Dan peristiwa itu juga menjadi titik persahabatan antara Rusia dan Malaysia sehingga kini. Duta Besar Rusia ke Malaysia, Lyudmila Vorokyeva berkata, selain hubungan diplomatik, peristiwa itu juga turut membawa nilai persahabatan antara rakyat kedua negara.
That's why it actually highlights the long history of relations that we have between Russia and Malaysia, long before any official contacts were established, and we will be grateful forever to the people of Penang for this assistance and help for our compatriots. And also it is very meaningful for our country, the young people in our country, to remember their heroes who died protecting their motherland. Though they were so far away from Russia, still they were fulfilling their mission of protecting and fighting for their motherland, for Russia.
Lyudmila ditemui pada majlis penghormatan ulang tahun ke-100 peperangan Pulau Pinang di tanah pertempuran Western Road di Georgetown. 12 daripada mangsa perang itu disemadikan di situ, manakala 2 lagi mangsa disemadikan di Pulau Jerajak.
So we're going to talk about the 100 years of the Battle of Penang. So what did happen actually?
On the 28th of October 1914, Russian ship Zemchuk, it was an armored cruiser, who came to Penang for maintenance and repair works, because at that time during World War I, Russia and Great Britain were allies. So the Russian ship came to the
colony in
harbor protected by the British for this maintenance works. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was attacked by the German ship Emden. The German ship disguised itself as a British one. And the crew of Zemchuk was caught off guard. That's why the German ship managed to come very close to the Russian ship, about 200 meters, and it fired several torpedoes. The crew managed to fire back, but as the ship was already tilted and sinking, they missed. The crew was around 300 people, and among them 88 died. The others were pulled out from the water by local people from Penang, and we're very grateful for them, to people of Penang, for saving so much lives of our sailors. Among those who died there, we think that 12 or 15, we don't know the exact number, are buried in 2 places in Penang. We have one memorial in the Western Road Cemetery in Georgetown, and another one in the small island of Pulau Jerajak, near to Penang.
And how many countrymen falls that day? If I'm not mistaken, 88.
It was 88.
And their remains were never be found.
Some of them were found, well, most of them were found, but most of them were sent back to Russia by when another ship came afterwards to collect. But some were buried in Penang.
I see. And many those who survived that time were saved by the fishermen.
Yes, they were saved by local fishermen who were guided by the spirit of compassion and kindness. And when they saw that there were Russians in the water, they were just went out into the sea in their small boats and pull out our people from the water. And afterwards, when they were sent to hospital, local people carried food and collected money for them. I think it's is a beautiful example of kindness and compassion. Of course, they were not asking Russians about their ethnicity or religion. They were just driven by compassion and kindness.
Well, in our book history, there was no events were written in the school books in our history in our history books at school. So basically, we do not. I've never known that Penang was involved as a battlefield during World War I. So it's it's a news for me, even though it's happened 100 years ago.
In world history, the Battle of Penang was not known very much about until recently. But 2 years ago, there was a book written by Dr. John Robertson, who is a former Navy officer, and this book was published in Malaysia and launched 2 years ago. And now, if you want to know the facts about the Battle of Penang, all the facts are given in this book, and there is a whole chapter on Jamchuk, because not only Jamchuk was involved, there was actually a French ship also called Le Mousquet, which was sank the same day by the same German ship Emden, and many of the French sailors died, but they are not buried in Penang because they were all taken away to Vietnam by another French ship who came to rescue.
Let us understand the role of Penang that time as the because during the World War I, British was a colony power in Penang, and there was a port in Penang, and there's still a port in Penang, of course. And why would superpowers that time, like Russia and French, and would come to Penang to let us understand more the role of Penang that time?
Because it was a harbor, and it was protected by the British. So the Allies forces, including Russia and France at that time, who fought against Germany and Germany's allies at that period of world history, could seek protection from the British if their navy was in this region, which was the case, because German ships were all over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, and so were the navies of the Allied powers. So the Russian ship basically came for protection, for repair and maintenance work, and it was seeking protection from the British Navy and the British harbor authorities. Unfortunately, the protection was not that good. That's why the German ship managed to come in, though of course it was disguised. And the British were expecting the arrival of a British Navy ship at that time, because and the Germans managed to intercept the radio communications between the ship and the harbor authorities. That's why it disguised itself.
Mistaken as a British ship.
That's why it was not detected and identified by the British.
All right, we have to take a first short break, and when we come back later, I will talk about the relationship of Malaysians, you know, the Malayan that time, especially the locals that time, and the Russia, even before the formation of the G2G relationship. Jumpa lagi selepas ini. Baiklah, kita masih lagi dengan Tuan Yang Terutama Ludmila Voroyova, iaitu Duta Besar Rusia ke Malaysia, bercakap mengenai mengenang peristiwa 100 tahun pertempuran Pulau Pinang. Dan this incident, this battle has what we call for the first time the flourish of friendship, the humanity between the two people, the Russian and the Malayan, the local people that time. So it became proof of the friendship that lasted actually before the formation, the formal formation of the G2G relationship.
Yes, I think it is a very meaningful event, and it really highlights the long history of friendship that we have between Russia and Malaysia, long before we had any official or diplomatic relations. The diplomatic relations between our two countries were established in 1967. But long before that, we had this manifestation of friendship and goodwill between our two nations. When I was in Penang, I met one of the grandchildren of those who actually were involved in saving Russian sailors, and he was aware of what happened there, and he cherishes these memories because his grandfather was a doctor, and he was telling his grandchildren this story that on the 28th of October 1914 he was going to the market at dawn, and he heard these explosions, and he ran to the sea, and he saw people pulling out wounded Russian soldiers, sailors from the sea, and he tended to these sailors. I was amazed by this story, and I was amazed that the grandson of this person knew this story so well. And what really impressed me, that he cherishes these memories. That is something really precious to him. I think I was very lucky to meet him.
And how are we going to tell this story to a lot more people? Does Russian aware about this?
Not many Russians, unfortunately, know about this story, but we're trying to attract the attention, because it's not only meaningful for our bilateral relation, but it's always also meaningful for young people in our country who should know that their grandparents, their grandfathers fought to protect their motherland, to protect our country. Though they were so far away from it, they were still doing their duty. They were fulfilling their mission to protect our country. It is very important to know what happened during the wars, because a war is always a tragedy, and in Russia we know the high price of wars, especially World War. We lost several million people in World War I. We lost 28 million people in World War II. It's the population of Malaysia. And we don't want the war to happen again. People, especially young people, the new generation, should know that the war is a great tragedy, and should make sure that the atrocities of war will never repeat. In modern times, now we can see many regional armed conflicts going on in our neighborhood in Ukraine, there is a civil war going on. So we need to make sure that the atrocities of war should be prevented.
We'll talk about the Ukraine issue later in the third block, but before that, let's talk about the current relationship we have. Of course, I know a lot of my friends, study in Russia, study medics in Russia, and they speak fluent Russian, and a couple of Russians who studied in Russia, but they study Bahasa Malaysia. And they speak fluent Bahasa, and the relationship, that social relationship, but more to that, the business relationship, of course, in terms of defense, we use a lot of Sukhoi.
Yes, and we're very proud and we're very happy that Malaysia uses the squadron of Sukhoi 30. It's one of the best aircrafts in the world in this category. But beside the cooperation that we have in defense, we also enjoy, as you mentioned, a very good cooperation in education. We have currently around 5,000 Malaysians studying in Russia, not only medical studies, of course the majority do medical studies, but also engineering. And Malaysians are now interested in other subjects, engineering, fundamental studies. Russia is traditionally very strong in studies in technical studies, mechanical, oil and gas, engineering. So Malaysians are welcome to come to Russia and study other subjects because we provide a very good quality of education with a very affordable price.
Of course. We have to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about this, about fostering the relationship of two countries and the people of the two countries. Kita masih lagi bersama dengan Duta Besar Malaysia, Duta Besar Rusia ke Malaysia, iaitu Tuan Yang Terutama Ludmila Voroyova, bercakap mengenai mengenang pertempuran Pulau Pinang 100 tahun lalu. Tapi di sebalik itu sahaja wujudnya persahabatan yang murni yang terjalin antara rakyat Malaysia, rakyat Melaya, orang-orang kampung Melayu ketika itu, dan juga warga Rusia yang berada di Pulau Pinang ketika itu. Alright, now moving forward, what will be the next platform for cooperation? Of course, Malaysia will become the chairman of ASEAN next year. So we are excited. How about Russia?
Yes, we're excited too. But actually, even now, Malaysia is the coordinator of partnership dialogue between Russia and Malaysia for 3 years. And next year, of course, Malaysia will be assuming the ASEAN chairmanship. I can tell you that ASEAN is very important for Russia. It is one of our priorities in our foreign policy and in our economic relations with foreign countries, because it's a huge market of around 600 million people. And traditionally, we've had very good relations with most of the ASEAN countries, and we hope that Malaysia, as in next year, will help us to boost this relation even more.
Of course, you always be in this part of the world. You told me earlier that you were in Thailand and Laos, so you even speaks Thai fluently. So now, moving forward, what is your expectation of this relationship, the one-to-one relationship and multilateral relationship?
Well, for Malaysia, in Russia, we look at Malaysia as one of our good partners among ASEAN countries. Malaysia is one of our major trade partners, with the trade turnover reaching last year more than $2 billion, with a tendency of a very fast growth. Last year we've seen 60% growth of our trade.
60%.
60%, very considerable growth.
That's huge.
And we see now that more and more Russian business people are looking towards Malaysia and trying to do business in Malaysia, and vice versa. We have Malaysians going to Russia, especially to Tatarstan, which is one of the regions in Russia with a predominant Muslim population. So there are very active contacts between Tatarstan and Malaysia. But besides that, we have a couple of very promising investment projects. For instance, this year, our very big corporation in fertilizers, Uralkali, started a joint venture with Malaysia in producing fertilizers, not only for Malaysia, but for the whole ASEAN region. We hope it will go well. They just started in January. So it's a very promising. Another very interesting project is related to biotechnologies. It's a production of an anti-dengue vaccine. It will the first anti-dengue vaccine in the world.
Vaccine.
Vaccine. Okay. Yes.
Vaccine.
Vaccine.
Finally.
Finally. If it comes through, it will be a major breakthrough, and not only for Malaysia,
it's around
the world, because dengue affects 100 countries, except Russia. We don't have. Russia is a cold country. We're not affected, but we have the technologies.
So when are you going to bring that to Malaysia?
We've already started last year. In Pahang, we have a joint venture that is trying to come out with this anti-dengue vaccine. It's the first time that they are not using the virus itself, which is very toxic. That's why all the previous attempts to create anti-dengue vaccine failed. They're using these new biotechnologies, bioengineering, to construct this vaccine without using the virus itself. So we hope that in 2 years' time they will come out with this vaccine.
And of course, Malaysia will also work very closely in the future, in the closest future. When we talk about the MH17 tragedy, the MH17 tragedy, the world, we are not sure who actually responsible, but Russia had helped a lot, in giving us, the media, the information needed and all that. But moving forward, do you think we'll be able to solve the mystery?
I really hope so, because for us it is very important. You know that from the very beginning Russia was very much blamed by the Western countries and the USA. We're very grateful to Malaysian government and the Prime Minister, who refused to play this blame game and called for an investigation. From the very beginning we were also emphasizing the need of transparent and thorough investigation before the blame could be put on any side. Actually, Russia was the first country who provided evidence and data on what happened in this area.
And you did a press conference then?
Yes, on the 17th of July, our Ministry of Defense came out with the intelligence data, and we were the first and the only one. So we will facilitate the investigation. Now, of course, it all happened in the Ukrainian territory, so basically the Ukrainian authorities are responsible. But whatever we can do, and it was very clearly cited by our president, we will do to help.
Thank you very much, Tuan Yang Terutama, Her Excellency Ludmila Voroyova, for sharing your time today. And you'll be ending your mission in Malaysia on December?
Yes. Everything good comes to an end, unfortunately. I'll miss Malaysia very much, because it's a lovely country with very nice and warm people.
And we're going to miss you too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tuan Yang Terutama, Her Excellency, bercakap mengenai mengenang 100 tahun pertempuran Pulau Pinang, juga kerjasama antara kedua negara, Rusia dan juga Malaysia. Saya Syamzan Johari. Assalamualaikum. Selamat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.